Welcome to Banyan Books, Branches of Wisdom, celebrating the joy of bright ideas and heartful lifelong learning. Branches of Wisdom is a series of intimate conversations with the world's most influential authors and visionaries. We explore spirituality and the human mind, ecology and culture. Most episodes are recorded with a live audience. You can join our live events and submit questions to your favorite guests. Check out our upcoming schedule at banyan.com. Since 1970, Banyan Books has been a rich oasis at the crossroads of wisdom and philosophy, offering resources for humanity's evolving paths. We're a locally owned, independent bookstore in the heart of Vancouver's Kitsilano neighborhood. Visit us in person or shop online at banyan.com. Please subscribe, follow, like, and leave your reviews for the podcast. And now, enjoy.
Welcome, everyone, to tonight's event with Dr. Lisa Collins and Cyndi Dale in conversation about Dr. Collins' new book, The Truth About Trauma: Break Patterns, Build Resilience, Restore Joy. I'm Jacob Steele, Events Manager at Banyan Books. We begin by acknowledging that while our audience joins from around the world, Banyan Books is located on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. If you find tonight's event meaningful, we invite you to support Banyan's free programming with a donation. You'll find a PayPal link in the video description below. You're welcome to type questions into the chat at any point during the event. And now a brief introduction of our guests. Dr. Lisa Y. Collins is a trauma healing practitioner, life coach, and assistant professor whose work centers on transforming personal and collective trauma. She has consulted for organizations including the Shift Network and the Center for Justice and Peace Building, and she's the author of Love of Light. A TEDx speaker and award-winning filmmaker, her work sparks dialogue on racial healing, and you can find her work at lisaycollins.com. Cyndi Dale is an internationally renowned intuitive healer and the author of more than 30 books on energy, medicine, and spirituality, including the award-winning The Subtle Body. Her work has reached over 80,000 clients, is published in 20 languages, and has been featured in several documentaries. Goop has called her a teacher of teachers, and you can find her work at cyndidale.com. That's CYNDIDALE.com. Their conversation tonight is about Lisa Collins' new book, The Truth About Trauma. The Truth About Trauma is a bold and compassionate guide to breaking generational cycles, reclaiming resilience, and restoring joy at the deepest levels. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Collins and Cyndi Dale. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you, Jacob. I'm so happy to be here. It's really my honor. I'm more of the interviewer and supporter of Dr. Collins, of Lisa, who is one of my very favorite people on this entire planet. And I think probably one of the most wise, educated, and funny people too.
Thank you, Cyndi.
But you got to have a good sense of humor if you're going to be teaching about trauma.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. A tough subject, but there is an other side to it.
So I'm going to kick off with the most obvious question based on the title of your book. What is the most important truth we need to know about trauma?
I think the most important truth about trauma is that it lives in the body. It's not an emotional response. It's our body's way of protecting us from a threat or seemingly a threat.
And so we've all been threatened. I mean, it is a universal phenomenon that we have all had trauma. How do we know if we're mostly affected by trauma from our history or history period?
That's a really good question. We all have this historical way and generational way of being. So I believe that my parents, my grandfather who was a sharecropper, my mom who picked cotton, all of those things come forward. And the way that I have experienced trauma is in my body, things I react to or overreact to or underreact to. Those are the things that got my attention.
Well, and that is the body's way of getting attention. I had years ago went through a stage for several years where I was getting arrhythmia. And I finally tracked it to my grandpa, I'm all Norwegian, Watford City, North Dakota farmer, the very same age I was. He started to get some kind of heart conditions, exactly the same age. And he was going through all kinds of, reactions to his world. He was told, you better quit farming, don't eat steak anymore, and, just sit at home. And he said, screw you. Lived till 92. But I always really related to him. So I was positive that my reactivity had a lot to do with what he went through, and it triggered in me at about the same age. Do you see that with people, kind of re-triggers?
Absolutely. I see it in my own life, and I see it in some of the people that I work with. For me, I started having stomach problems, having acid reflux when I didn't even have acid reflux. And I trace that back to the maternal line of having acid reflux. And I see it with people that I work with and coach, that they're having a problem and they're not looking at the generations past. They're kind of stuck. So we have to look at generations past and historical.
So how do we do that? I remember in third grade making a family tree out of construction paper, right? But we weren't analyzing. We just put the names on there, which I could hardly spell. And then when I entered therapy, when I was about 20, we started adding, alcoholic, sexually abused, and some of this. How else can we kind of get into our history, to surface it? And if it does surface, what do we do about it?
Yeah, getting into the history is hard because if it's anything like my family, there's a lot of secrets. So I became curious when I had a feeling or something. And then with that curiosity, I was able to do some work that I talk about in the book and look at the root, the shadow of that. And that helped me get to it. I think people want a easy, like, tell me what to do so I could fix it. And the reality is, like the book says, first level, body, mind, spirit, soul reconnection. As that's the start of the curiosity.
It's the start, and it's a process. It's a deep dive. I've been in therapy since 20. I'm now 30 years old. No. So I've only been at it 10 years. No, I've been at it decades. And, it's funny how often things trigger. And my youngest son is currently doing his own deep dive, issues inherited from mom, issues from dad with us, but he's starting to go back in time too. And it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's only in his mid-20s, and good for him for doing that work, but it is not fun. He's anxious one day, depressed the next. Can you speak to how we survive, that type of work?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking today about how we just become, like, our bodies start to manipulate and become the things that are bugging us. And so I always say that my personality became colored, or, I had these jagged edges, and those jagged edges was a source of the trauma response. And I think what we can do is, like, when we notice those things, that's the place to pay attention to them and to start to be curious about what's going on. Definitely listen to your body. If your body says, many times, if you ask a teacher, how you have 20 minutes for lunch and you just shove the food in your mouth and you never go to the bathroom, like, listen to your body. Do what your body is asking you to do is really like the initial step of, like, being able to find those trauma responses.
But, a lot of us either don't like our body. I mean, I had anorexia and bulimia, kind of through my teen years. That was a shutdown of what I was carrying. Or we don't feel our body, because I know for several years I was also numb, even through
Mhm.
therapy, even through my early years of therapy, I just had this sort of numbness. So how do we, if we're more on that end, a little underwhelmed with our body,
Mhm.
how do we start knowing it, feeling it, coaxing it alive?
Yeah, I totally identify with everything you said. And I know one of the tools, younger selves, really helped me, where I looked at, different ages that I really struggled. And I went back to that age and asked my 5-year-old self, what do you want? And I gave that 5-year-old everything they wanted. And this is one more time where I thought, this doesn't work and I'm not going to do it. But I was working with someone and they said, try it. And I did. And what freedom I got that my 5-year-old self wasn't showing up. And so when there's body issues, what age was that? To be curious, to look back and go talk to that age. And in the book, the activity is called Younger Selves.
Yeah, it's a really excellent book and with amazing activities you can do on your own. And it's always encouraged, of course, to work with somebody, have a friend, have a therapist, have a companion along the walk. But we are these younger selves. They are us too. And I did quite a bit of that work too. I still do sometimes.
Me too.
I work with a psychic healer. She's awesome. She has this British accent, which is half the fun of it. And she's like, yeah, what happened when you were 2? Let's do your 2-year-old. Or the night before I worked with her just a couple days ago, I was up with terror. And so that was in my body. It was in my heart. I was just in terror. I'm like, well, I'm not scared of today. I'm not scared of the cat. I'm not scared of the dogs. I'm not scared of, it wasn't present. I couldn't track it. So it was perfect timing. And I believe it came up because I had her to walk me backward into it. And part of it was generational and inherited. Some of it was my own too.
Absolutely. And I have worked with many people, including you, which I very much am honored about. But everyone has taught me something different. And I think I had to be open to hear about past lives, to hear about generational trauma or past traumas, or I had to be open. So it started with a little trinkle of like, I'm going to try this. And then when something else came my way, oh, I'm going to try this. And that opened up to healing past life trauma, psychic attacks, so many other things that I worked with a variety of people, but I was open and I wanted the freedom that I experienced after working on that.
Well, there's this agelessness to our soul, because now you're kind of talking my language as an energy healer. I remember the first time I did a past life regression, it was sort of accidental. I had a reaction to peanuts, and my dad was allergic to peanuts, but I had never been. And I went to get a massage, and the massage therapist said, oh, that's a past life. I go, well, and I remembered past lives when I was a kid, but hadn't connected everything in. And in 5 minutes, she regressed me to a lifetime in which the only thing I could eat, I mean, everything was just a drought and we were starving except for peanuts. And it was like, so no wonder I reacted. It just brought up, those unsavory, type of I'm extinguishing, it's just reminding me of, I'm starving and how hard life can be. So
Mhm.
how do you work with clients when you're interweaving this way, generational, and now we have science telling us that's on the epigenome, we inherit it chemically, past lives, I'm sure there's in-between lives. How do you kind of flow with people to find the causal piece of whatever's triggering in their body, their stomach ache, their problem, whatever it is?
Yeah, so funny is it's actually how I was worked with is like what's going on today. And what was going on today for me was like, I'm having this hard time at work and these people are this, that, and the other. And one of the tools, the thinking map, And, being on the outside of the bicycle wheel was what the coach was telling me. And I was like, I don't get it. And she said, what's the deep, she had me go through what happened? How do you feel? What's the deep belief about yourself? And I was like, you don't understand me. I just told you how these people are doing stuff to me, and you're asking me about myself. Let me tell you again the story. And that deep belief about yourself, that floored me. And like an everyday occurrence, like I didn't like what happened at work. And for me to go through that and find a shadow from something that happened when I was 2, and then bringing that shadow to the light and shining it on it. And then the part I added to this from the life coaching was rewrite the narrative. That's not true. It brought so much freedom. So I actually start with what's happening today. What's bugging you today?
Right. What's going on? What's underneath it? What belief do you have about yourself? And it's probably not going to be accurate or truthful or happy.
No,
It's
it's not
bothering
good.
you. And then that's the rewriting. That's the piece.
I love that part.
Right. So how would you help someone like me? We'll go back with my peanut allergy, which did clear, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I only had it once too, which was sort of bizarre, but I never had it again. I could feel it releasing. So the belief was, life is starving me. I am starving in my life. It wasn't really about the peanuts. It was the stage of life I was in, feeling like I'm not being given to, life is so hard. How do you rewrite? So the belief about myself is I don't deserve, I'm not worthy. How do you rewrite that, Lisa? How would you change that?
Well, one thing about beliefs is that it's like the pyramid of thought. One belief begots another one. So there's core beliefs, right? And then there's beliefs outside of that. And so I would go down to the root chakra, I belong here. I would go down to there. Do you belong here? Is there something that happened that make you think that you don't belong here? And then I would spiral up from there.
Yeah. Always go under.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I work with chakras too. And the lower they are in relationship to the body, the earlier they are, the more primal they are. And I don't know if you have found this, but those are the chakras I find most people don't like. I ain't going there. I'm not
I don't want to go there.
That's a scary cave down there.
It is scary. And I remember actually listening to one of your books that talked about like conception, from conception until whenever you could remember. And that helped me a lot because I wasn't thinking conception. What? You don't start there. But that helped me a lot. And I was able to find deep belief systems from that time.
We can. And then, like you said, we can go back to other lives and other planets or however far we want to go back. But, even science is bearing this out. I've been doing a deep dive into researching cancer. And I knew this a few years ago, and there's even more data now that many cancers actually start in the womb. Many disease processes start with microbial and emotional, sort of environment in the womb. They can track it now.
Wow.
And it's fascinating that what we go through before we're even cognitive in the body, it's in the body and it keeps showing up. They're even able to isolate cancer cells and figure out your probability of survival. If they look more like, because they look like fetal cells, if they look more like the first try, you might be done in. If they look like the middle try, you got some chances. If they look like the third try, you have a much better chance of healing. So think of how primal we are. We just are.
And I think also like we have to come to grips with that, right? We have to come to grips that, there's a soul. We have to come to grips. I got ready for it. I had to get ready for it. And I had to wrap my mind around it a little bit at a time. And when I did, the healers start coming, the work start happening. So I would say like, get yourself ready for the freedom, for the peace. claim it. Even if you don't believe it, I always say to people, do you believe it that I believe it?
That's beautiful. I know when I was a kid, I had past life memories. I could see things. I don't know if I knew the word soul, but I knew I'd been. I knew I'd always been. Why do we shut that down? Because that's a trauma. To shut ourselves off and put ourselves in a tiny little Kleenex box when we have a whole house we can occupy.
We have a
That's a
mansion.
trauma.
Yes.
That's a trauma. What happens because of that trauma? Because we isolate ourselves into, we don't even really, most of us accept our bodies, not in America anyway.
No, not in America at all. I think that there is something magical, special that each one of us carry. And to be able to like embrace it, it's a little scary. If we think about it, like the church hasn't done us a favor. I'm not anti-church. I'm just saying it hasn't done us a favor by scaring people when it comes to talking about your soul or talking about spirit. So I love children because children are so free. They just got here. They don't know it's scary yet. And they're completely living their best life. That glee, that joy is in all of us. And I think you have to be curious enough to tap it. And our world is scary. Well, I mean, if you just listen to media, you will be very, very afraid.
Well, and let's talk about that. I'm just going to tail on with the children piece because they do their body. They are a spirit. They have a soul. They're I have a grandbaby now. So she's 9 months and she is feisty. She hogs, she barks, she loves barking. But if you give her something she doesn't want, like here's your milk, she's like, no. I mean, there's all the emotions there because there's a sense of self, which I think is what we're trying to read. That's why we release trauma, because we want to be ourselves again.
Absolutely. The freedom of self.
So we're in a mess right now. The whole world's in a mess. America's really a mess. David Brooks, he's one of the commentators I really like, said, it's just sort of embarrassing to be an American right now. But I think that could be said in many cultures, or scary, or dangerous, or breathtakingly, overwhelming. Can you just help us a little bit with just laying out what this trauma is that we're going through? We're going through it collectively and we're going through it individually. And different ethnic groups or groups of people are going through more than others.
Absolutely. There are so many traumas. When I learned all of them, I was overwhelmed. Structural trauma, which we're all going through right now with this administration. We also have, a historical trauma, is that we're reliving some of the harshness from the past right now. And we're going through, like you said, collective and individual. And so we're going through a lot of traumas. So each one of those are lodging into our body. And what I see happening in our society is people are eating these things for lunch. It's like, I'll have a little trauma for breakfast. No, I'll have some for snack and I'll have some for dinner. Instead of trying to bring in peace or quiet the mind or be in nature or any of those things that's going to help, we just keep eating more and more of the things that's harming us. So we're on the cycle of trauma.
So
constantly.
How do you stay informed? Because if we're called to action, right, we want to be informed. And how do we keep ourselves at peace? That's a balance beam. How do we do that teeter-totter?
It is a balance beam. I think for me, I try to keep myself meditated up, because when I'm not, I can jump into that fear quickly. The other thing I do is I look for media sources that are facts. Yeah. That they're not going to give me the frill. They're not going to give me the roller coaster. They're not going to try to scare me. They're just going to tell me the facts. And then I keep abreast of those. And then the other thing I do, what I think we all need, is find a community of support. People who are like you, where we could be together, we can experience joy, and we're just going to keep on living, because we will get through this.
Yeah. And how do you know that we'll get through this? I want to hold on to that. How do you know that?
You know what, Cyndi? There is more good than evil always. Always. And the light is getting bigger and bigger. That's why the fight is stronger and stronger. I know in my soul that we, especially when the collective we, the light bearers, get together, and there's lots of us out there, that we are going to rise the tide.
See, I love the phrase, when the dark rises, so does the light. And it's stronger and higher and more intense. And, you know, to me, I do know that in my soul. I believe I know that in my body too, because I'm often surprised how not nervous I am. Now, I have very little, chance of getting stopped at the border, right? Or kicked out, but you never know, because I post things. I post what I want to post and I go international. So there is this sort of a low key, if you step out, you're endangered. But my body knows, we are getting there. This is helpful at some level, not that we like what we're going through, but it's beneficial because we can rise together too.
Mm-hmm. And that's the together part.
Yeah.
And how often do we need to learn that it's a together? And so community and together is the part that's coalition. You want to call it network. You want to call it grassroots. Us, we need to be together more, and we need to find each other.
I think that's so true. One of the questions people ask me quite often comes more from an energetic perspective, with the idea of there being a group mind. So there's group mind, there's group heart, but it's a collective of consciousness that is negative. And that's what a lot of people I know are perceiving. Like, there's a group mind, Cyndi, and people are of negativity, of us versus them. Let's hurt these people. Let's make the rich richer and the poor poorer, and that's how we're going to be safe. Let's shut down intelligence, or whatever it is. There really is a group mind, and it was, Hitler worked that way. He actually had an entity that's been recorded, but he created this sort of a system that people bought into, that they felt almost like a spiritual rush, like it was it, and they bought into it mentally. And then people don't like to leave that once they bought in, because of dissonance. It's like,
right.
I don't want to think I'm in a cult. So how do we deal with that? Because the people in a negative group mind are being traumatized without even knowing it.
They absolutely are. And when you have a vibration that's so low, it just begats more low vibration. So I think what we want to do is that people are attracted to the light, no matter what. And if us that are out there doing the work, making community, those people, when they're curious, they will come closer to us. So this part about judging and pushing away, we don't judge. We don't push away. Just continue to shine the light. And those people, I hope that they get my book, and I hope that they read it. And I hope that they start searching for what they know it within. And at the same time, Cyndi, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to go down to the pit to get them.
No, thank you. I would hold on to your ankles, but I wouldn't follow you.
There is a lot of light in this world.
There's a lot of light. That's so encouraging too, and I do think people get attracted to it. So we need to keep doing it and reflecting it. Now, one of the things that I think is happening a lot for people, whether they're caught in the group mind and they it's just too scary to leave it, frankly, that's their community, or we're in the light, working more for light, either side, we are triggering old traumas. So yes. I know that there has been events in the world just in the past year or two that I've thought, oh, here's a victim issue of mine coming up. So with all this happening, this is really a good invitation to dig into the traumas that we're carrying, to be empowered, to make wise decisions, But I think, I read some speech and I was like, oh my gosh, my mom used to yell at me like this. So it's an interesting time that I think it's almost demanding that we do that sort of a cleaning or deep dive.
I agree. And I'm not saying things don't come up for me. They do. And I stop and pay attention to them. But like I said before, my grandfather was a sharecropper until he could buy his own land. My mom picked cotton, and to the atrocities that are coming, it's like I could go all the way down to a deep trauma response and be fighting and cursing and all of that. Or I could do as Dr. King talked about, an act of nonviolence, transform energy. We don't hate our oppressor. I'm going to stay on this side of the street and keep moving this way. And I know there's a lot of people walking and moving with me, and we will find each other. I believe that communities of support, like I'm talking about, are going to be, I want one in every city. There's a place you can go. There's people you can talk to. You won't feel othered. You will be welcomed. You will be able to walk in unity.
It is about unity. And I know I even have a couple people, I'm part of a couple communities that are bigger, leading one. However, one of the communities that I feel very honored to be part of, there's just 3 of us. We just get on Zoom and we just do, I don't even know what we do. We just do blessings. We just say, let's bring this into the world. Let's do this. Let's shimmer this. Let's, open up that group mind to what truth is. So I don't think community even has to be large. If you're shut in, then get on Zoom, join a group, join a program, join a class.
Find people who think like you think and want to go in the direction you want to go on. And I've been in communities too where we do a prayer session every Monday, and when I can't do the prayer session, I have it in recording, and I could do it wherever I am in the world. I could do that prayer for the world, for the United States, for our government, for our people. And we've been doing these prayers. I mean, I've been involved since COVID. So since 2020, and it was going on way before me.
So why does it work? I mean, the answer I'm looking for is really an understanding of subtle energy, because I think many of us are feeling like we felt when we were traumatized, like grandma felt when grandma was traumatized, right? Like how mom felt or dad felt when they were being traumatized. Both my parents grew up in the Depression. My dad, they had nothing. My grandmother took in laundry. My grandpa started drinking. My dad slept in a cot his entire time growing up. That's trauma. So how do we know that the quiet activities, the joining, the talking, the prayer, how do we know that works?
I'll tell you how I know it works.
Yeah.
What worked in my life. Because what happened is that all of a sudden those feelings, there wasn't all of a sudden. I'm going to say that I did the work for it to happen. But I did these activities. I started with the body, and I had issues with the body too. And what would happen is new energy would flow in. And people who have known me, there's someone that's listening that's known me for a while. Those jagged edges began to melt. The heart began to not be hardened. I thought that was my personality. It's not. I became more peaceful. And so we start to see it. I had a call last night with a young lady. And when we got on the call, she didn't want to turn her camera on. And when we got off the call, this bright, beaming, beautiful young lady was looking at me. We can tell. That's how we can tell. It's a bit by bit, but it works. It does work. And it is subtle energy.
It is.
Because it's not like, well, Shazam.
Right.
I'm better. It's very subtle. And sometimes other people can see it in you before you can see it in yourself.
Yeah, I've seen that even with my kids, like they're like all upset and then they're softening and, and then I'm like, do you know that you actually are kind of happy? One of the key points you make is that we need to build resilience. And how do we read about resilience, it's a therapeutic term. And when I've read about it, some of the early studies were sort of odd because it made it sound like you either had resilience or you didn't. Right? Like you came out of you survived childhood because you were resilient. And if you didn't have any resilience, you're just done in. You're one of the statistics. So I mean, it's just positive to me to know we can build it. What are some ways reasons for and ways to build resilience?
Yeah, I think the way we look at resilience is like you said, like you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
But often it's intertwined in what you're doing. So resilience is something that it's part of who you are. It's not something that you're going to go grab off the shelf. And I think part of it is being able to see yourself for who you are and what you've lived through or what you give to the world. And when you're doing that, you are living in resilience. You are living with uncertainty. You are persevering. That is resilience. And that happens when you take a look at what's happening and you're able to see yourself authentically who you are, regardless of what's happening.
That's beautiful. From an energetic or a chakra point of view, I like systems. So it's a mechanical approach, but I tend to think of what's in front of the body in terms of our energetics is the future. What's behind is about history, and the sides are about the present. But the point of being is in the center. And we get anxious if we worry too much about the future. We're out there sensing possibilities, most of which 99.99% of them are just not going to happen, and we tend to catastrophize when we're doing that anyway. When we're just in the history, of course, we have to clean it. We have to bring ourselves forward. That's the trauma healing from what we've been through or we've carried in, whether it's past lives or ancestors or childhood or yesterday or whatever it is. And we can't just live off to the side. We need to be in the middle, in the self. And I have found just focusing on that for myself, if I find, I'm getting anxious, I'm worried about what's going to be in the, happen tomorrow with the trade war or the Sudan or whatever, I just bring myself back in. You have a beautiful breathing exercise. I'm wondering if you could show that with us, guide us through that, that can help us just be in that place of self and peace. I would love to have you share that with us.
It's one of my favorites that I got from Philip Burley. And if you like to participate, put your feet on the ground, close your eyes. If you can't close your eyes, look down to the tip of your nose. And on the in-breath, you're going to think, you don't have to say it, so, and on the out-breath, calm. All right, so let's take a deep breath. So on the in-breath, so. On the out-breath, calm. On the in-breath, so. On the out-breath, calm. On the in-breath, so. Out-breath, calm. Now take a couple by yourself. Calm. So calm. So calm. Take one deep breath. Blow it out. And then you can slowly come back.
I do feel more peaceful and interesting. I feel like a sadness that's not sadness. You know how sometimes there's tears that are about relief?
Mm-hmm.
So does that happen for people with this, that they
It
have
does.
uprising and releasing and a
There could be
beingness?
so many feelings. It could be happiness. It could be fear. It can be joy. It's really, like you said, release. It is release. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it.
So how do we not be afraid of fear? Because I hear that question a lot of people. Well, they don't ask me the question. They're just scared of being scared.
Right. And I would describe myself as a person who grew up on a fear foundation. So I
Yeah, me too.
would be the one.
I
And
get it.
really for me is staying in the moment. Like you said, and sometimes I would go through, okay, worst case scenario. Let me just throw out the worst case scenario. And then I just bring myself back. That one day at a time goes a long way. And then also I needed to go back and I did some work on where is this fear coming from? And it was coming from generational trauma. It was coming from a family that lived in slavery. It was coming from many different things that I had lived through in past lives. So I needed to put those things back where they were. And I needed to live this life in peace.
That question, I've learned if something's too big, it's too big. It's not right now. And it may not even be mine.
Right?
A little bit of it that might be mine. I might have the seed of it. But boy, when I grew up, I had my dad's anger, my mom's fear, my everybody's shame floated around the house. So that's an important point to speak to yet. Is it all mine? Where did it come from? And is it all mine? What do you do with that concept?
Well, I know it's not all mine for sure, because science has shown us that things come through the generations, and I'm curious about it. And to make it right size, I do go through the thinking map, younger selves. I try to put it in its perspective, and energy medicine and healing, chakra clearing, all part of going through. And then the time that I spent, the childhood things, to put those in their proper perspective too. It's not like I want to go back and chastise people. I just like that did happen and I need to put that down. So all of those things are how I've dealt with it.
Yeah. And your book is excellent. It has all this in it. It has the science about the epigenetics, how it's chemical, why it's the body that's the memory keeper, and the chakras are kind of like, little computers in the middle of that too. The truth about trauma. The truth is there is trauma. The truth is we've all been traumatized. And the truth is that it can invite change. And the path of releasing it, transforming it, like Einstein, etc., said, you don't destroy energy, you change it. You can change it. That's one of the positives. It can transform. You can transform into yourself. I mean, the goal isn't to become somebody else. It's to transform into yourself.
Absolutely. To be free. To be free.
I'm going to ask you some questions. We have a lot of questions coming in, and I want to jump into them because they're awesome. So one, Amara, what do you believe trauma is here to teach the soul, if anything? I love that question.
Wow. I believe that for me, I needed to know who I was. I really needed to know who I was and where I came from. So for me, my soul has been through a lot in this life and in past lives. And what trauma gave me a centering. The healing of the trauma gave me a centering for who I am in this world and what I'm meant to do while I'm here.
So as you've worked it through, again, you've gained yourself the freedom to be who you are. Yes. And be on purpose, which is part of what your book is. It's you on purpose too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question.
It's a great question. Here's another wonderful one by Rowan. What's your relationship with anger, and what has it taught you about love? We so often partner fear and love. Where's the anger piece?
Anger. Does this person know me?
Yes, no.
Anger. what I've learned about anger is that it was self-love is what it taught me, to love myself. But on the other side of the anger that I work with was fear. It was like my go-to for fear is anger. And now with love, self-love for myself, I don't need anger in the way that I did before. It still rears its head. It's not gone. But anger on the other side of that was fear for me.
So it's kind of an empowering way of dealing with your fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually going to answer the next one because I just think it's really a cool question and important. What was Hitler's entity? Because I brought that up. Does Trump have one? So I'm just going to go into the thick of this one.
I love it.
All right. When Hitler was 17, he had a school friend who saw an entity come in him and exit him. Hitler's in the trenches. World War I, he hears a voice that says, get out of the trench. He did. Everybody else was killed. And after that point, he started listening to the entity or the force. Is probably even a worse thing than an entity, a bigger force. You know, genocide, racism, sexism, all those are forces that I think literally gave him his marching orders, and he ran an entire country on it. Now, I can only say this is not a political statement. Does Trump have one? I believe there's a lot of dark forces. To me, a force is like a consciousness. It's not an entity, which is like a soul, dead or alive. But a force is what increases, again, racism, ageism, sexism, genocide, hatred, poverty. And so I think that's sort of what's steering a lot of what he's doing. So I took that question and I'm making it not political, but energetic by answering that.
Oh, that's great, Cyndi.
Okay, cool. Wonderful question. How can someone begin to reclaim parts of themselves they exiled long ago?
That sounds to me, what first thing that comes up for me is younger selves, but just like the care and love of who you are. And so what does that mean? That means like being very, very gentle with yourself. There's a reason why something was exiled. And we don't ever want to push. I never say, oh, you should find out. It's all about like care, breathing, walking out in nature. It's all about that self-care. And when things come up, then they come up. But all about that care. And in the book, The Truth About Trauma, there's self-care tools after every chapter. It's all about the care and love of yourself, which can be difficult to do, but is necessary.
It was hard for me. Sometimes it still is not really that hard anymore.
It can be a struggle.
It can be a struggle. Like me, I'm so proud of myself that I don't have my kids at home anymore, that I cook dinner every night, just something that simple. And people often say, why cook for yourself? And it's like, because I'm me, because I am.
I am. I love it.
I am. Catherine, what were some of the most practical teachings that brought freedom? So what are some of the most practical ones, especially for people who struggle with ideas about past lives or energetic medicine? So if we don't go there to energy, to subtle, to chakras, to, past lives, I mean, you have a lot of practical self-care, journaling. What are some of the other ideas that you offer people?
Yeah, I talk about the strategies for trauma awareness and resilience. That's one of the places I started with the Center for Justice and Peace Building. And that was a course I took that actually helped me see, oh, I have trauma. Oh, here's a model for handling it. And the models are mentioned in the book, but that is a place where I started. That's one of the places I started to learn about trauma and ways to navigate it.
Yeah, that's excellent. Another question, how to assure that the concept of trauma doesn't get manipulated. So a couple traumas, surviving high school or surviving a bomb attack. Both can be terrifying, but society often tells us which one qualifies for attention. It does. It tells us what counts and what doesn't, what is traumatizing or not. How do you help people with that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to shut the blinds on what other people are telling you, right? Because there's always a narrative that comes in that will tell you, like, you know, don't eat eggs, don't eat bacon, don't eat pork, don't eat, like, there's always a narrative. So to kind of like stop the narratives and what do you need? What do you need? Those narratives are on purpose to cause chaos. As like we talked about what's happening in our society, chaos makes us confused and we don't know where we're going. We don't want chaos. We want to be really centered. So if there's a harm, we want to pay attention to it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it came from. We want to pay attention to all harm and not listen to a diatribe of this harm is good, that harm is bad.
Yeah, I remember learning that in maybe 4th grade. I had a girlfriend, like I had a really very challenging childhood, and she seemed to have it easy. And she said to me one time, you know, just because I don't live with your parents doesn't mean I don't have problems. I thought, wow, 4th grade. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, to figure out if it's traumatizing to us, it's trauma. It is. Bobby, trauma and self-loathing are the foundation of this horrific matrix. It's going to take us all coming together in person in order for us to heal and to love. It's a beautiful comment, and it's really reiterating what you've been saying, you know, as well. We can't do it alone, or just like we can do it in screens when we're looking at each other, but not just, you know, behind screens either.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said matrix.
Yeah, talk about that. I like that too. I went to that as well.
Yeah, matrix. I mean, I remember studying matrix in school, and I was like, it's something that we study, but there are so many different levels, so many different dimensions. I'm not aware of all of them, and they're all intersecting. So we know in this day and time, on this plane where we are right now, we do need each other. So we need to do that. And then those of us who are on other planes also know that the work needs to be done there. And not everybody is on every plane.
There's a few more questions, but I'm going to sneak this one in, even though it's focused. If I may ask, any insight on healing cancer, gynecological cancers, what energies relate to it? Because I know I have found, certainly it can be exposure to radiation or bad food or whatever, but how do you think trauma might relate to cancers?
Oh,
It's a
trauma
good
lives in the body, and we could keep piling them up. And what our body does is beautiful thing is that when a trauma happens and the body go ahead and protects it into a neural net. And that neural net is protected. If anything comes close to it, then it could be activated. Well, can you imagine years, generations, histories of trauma living in your body without being right-sized or healed? I think that would make you sick. We know that the body keeps a score. So I'm coining a phrase or a book. And because the body keeps a score, feelings also are part of what can influence the body. We know that from science. And so if we keep eating the poison, eventually it has to come out somewhere.
And you point out in your book, people have had, you know, a lot of our serious adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, statistically have a much higher chance of heart disease, emotional and mental illnesses, physical problems, cancers. I would add this. It doesn't suit every type of cancer, but we call cancers malignancies. So why is that? I often do think that there can be interference, whether it's from ancestral and or inherited, you know, kind of negativity, but to look for what are the malignancies, what's causing the malignancies, literally entity forces, bad thoughts, you know, that aren't true about ourselves. I would add that piece too.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And the second level of in the truth about trauma is your mind patterns. What thoughts are going through your mind constantly? If they're like, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, you're not going to make it, they're not yours. they're beautiful. You look wonderful in that dress. I like that lipstick color. Then we're on the right track.
Great lipstick colors. Oh, well, that fits with this question. It's not about lipstick. What do you say to the voice inside that whispers? What do you say to it? You're too much. You're not enough. What do you say to those voices? Indigo already was going there.
I tell them to go away. I stop them first. I stop them. What I ask myself is, whose voice is that? Because it's not mine. And I have worked using the tools in the book to get rid of that voice. Now, if I don't take care of myself, if I do too much, I'm too tired, the voice can come back quickly. But I know how to get rid of it is I ask whose it is, where did it originate? It is not mine. And I don't listen to it. I meditate, which helps me to know who I am, because when my head is quiet, I'm peaceful.
There you are. If you're not in the peace, you get to assert authority for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Here's a beautiful question from Jackson. In your own words, what does aliveness feel like after long dissociation? Wow, I love that question.
Ooh.
Isn't that lovely? You just want to sink in and feel the answer to that.
Wow. You know, it feels like coming home. It feels like being in a field of wildflowers and laying down in the wildflowers with the bees going around you and not afraid of the bees. I mean, this is a vision that I often have of past pets running and jumping on me. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm just at peace. And I didn't know that I wasn't. I thought everyone had those voices. I thought that's the way life was, but it's not, because I live in peace today. It is like being in the most beautiful place you ever wanted to be and being there with the people you love the most. That's exactly what it's like.
And you want people to keep going until they have that home.
Absolutely. Don't give up. It's possible. I did it. You can do it.
So from Zane, this is another, put it on a placard question. What's one truth about trauma that still brings you to tears?
Well, there's tears in a couple ways. One tear is tears of happiness, right? Because I don't want my kids or my grandkids to experience trauma and live through trauma like I did. So I have those tears. The other tears are the tears of generational and historical trauma, which seeps in. And the truth for me today is that I can recognize and then work on healing it. And I'll give you an example is that we have a cat, and I was so his name is Hunter, so much anxiety about him being in the kitchen. And I didn't know why. And then it came back to me. It was almost like I was transported back to slavery times. And I was hungry and was fighting for food with an animal. And I was like, wow. Now, before, I was a jerk because I didn't want the cat in the kitchen. But as I continued to heal, I saw, oh, this is something else. This is not about Hunter being in the kitchen. This is about a past life memory that's stuck in my body.
And ancestral, yeah. I'm sure too.
Ancestral, absolutely.
Both. And they can double up like that too. We're nearing to a close, Lisa. Your book is fantastic. It's so useful. It's so clear. It's so honest. It's so like sitting and talking to you like we are right now. Any last word you would like to share with all of us?
Thank you, Cyndi, so much. And Jacob, I would like to say, seek healing, whatever way possible, whatever calls your name. pull the thread and seek healing. And this book is like a companion. It's like a journal. It's not a destination. It's a journey. And I hope that you join me, because I will be right with you.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you, Jacob and Banyan, for allowing me to ask questions and Lisa to share about her life and path and to bring all of us together. We're part of the movement of light here. We've been that.
Thanks for joining us for Branches of Wisdom, a podcast of Banyan Books and Sound, Canada's spiritual and healing resource since 1970. Our podcast producer is Jacob Steele. Watch all our conversations on YouTube by searching for Banyan Books, or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Please subscribe, follow, like, and leave your reviews and comments. We love to hear from you. For all our live events, books, and more, visit us at banyan.com.